Hello and welcome to the Eden Project in Cornwall.
In this world-famous eco-park, we've invited 8 artists to interpret and depict its iconic biomes. Basically, they're giant greenhouses designed around the idea of a bubble.
And with just 4 hours, they'll need to work at the double if they're to avoid bubble trouble. Let's hope no one gets hysterical. It's a brand new series of Landscape Artist of the Year.
Thousands of applicants have been whittled down to just 40 competitive artists, battling it out for this year's title.
I haven't tried painting bubble wrap, but I imagine it's quite similar.
They've been challenged to create unique artistic interpretations of some of the UK's most striking scenery, from sumptuous historic parkland to surreal modern vistas.
It's almost like a scene out of a sci-fi movie.
I know. I think I just saw E.T. over there, actually.
did you?
Yeah.
And no matter what their chosen medium, each artist will have just 4 hours to complete their masterpiece.
But I'll probably take another 3 days to complete this.
The prize, a prestigious £10,000 commission from Manchester Art Gallery to create a piece celebrating the natural beauty of the Northwest and its industrial heritage. But to get there, they'll need to impress our 3 discerning judges, Kathleen Soriano, Taishan Scherenberg and Kate Bryan.
Good for you for taking something really lovely and making it a little bit scary.
At every heat, we've also invited 50 intrepid wildcard artists, each vying for a single spot in the semi-final.
I have tubes of paint, I have my brushes, and water, which I nearly forgot, which is no good with watercolours if you don't have any water with you.
So get ready to find out who's got the skills to succeed.
It's the nightmare bit. Ink everywhere.
And who's prepared to take a gamble for the title of Landscape Artist of the Year.
I've never painted a landscape before. I've always done pen and ink drawing.
What? So you entered Landscape Artist of the Year wildcard,
Yes.
thinking I'll work it out on the
I'd
day?
give it a go, yeah.
Of today's 8 artists competing at the Eden Project, 6 are professionals. Lincoln Tabor, Denise Cliffen, Dominic Parchuk, Priya Sunil, Alicia Enfield and David Youts.
I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I'm not sort of used to painting this type of scenery, so it could go one way or the other.
Joining them are amateur artists Sharrock Nile and Doug Johnson.
I'm not used to doing art in front of anyone. It's normally on my own, late at night at my desk, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
While the artists unpack their chosen tools, the judges have the chance to scrutinise their submissions, which they're seeing in the flesh for the first time.
So we're at a beautiful day in a beautiful place, but we are going to journey around the world, and we're going to start with a bit of spikiness.
I mean, this is such an intriguing little painting, and what peculiar trees. Obviously, that's what drew them to the landscape in the first place.
The whole thing is about just one kind of mark making it. It does feel just particularly spiky, but it's about rhythm, I think.
So we head to the Indian subcontinent next.
We're really interested in artists that use textiles and fabric, and obviously we're always looking for an artist that's able to elevate it, to really allow it to sit within a fine art tradition, and I think this artist has done that really successfully.
They work with light and shade, and that's really clever and quite subtle.
Now, anyone who lives in this country will have driven past bus stops like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's really glorious in its celebration of the mundane, and the way that it's kind of scrubby little part of England and a scrubby little painting. It's so charming.
It really is a nowheresville, but done in a very beautiful, loosely painted way.
I love this work. When you get up really close to it, it just looks like a lot of dibby-dabbiness, but there's a real sense of air in that sky.
I want to be this artist moving this paint around, like whipping up those skies.
And here we couldn't have a bigger contrast.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastical, it's whimsical. It feels like a sort of a print that could have emerged from the 16th century.
I'm always surprised with printmakers how they conjure up space with just black and white, and it has got that sort of mystical, medieval feel to it.
I absolutely adore this painting because you've got a quintessential English landscape that could have been painted by Constable. And then this artist has put like this enormous block right in the middle of all this beauty.
It almost looks unreal. And I think it really kind of conveys that otherworldly quality.
The next painting creates some drama, doesn't it?
It's like 3 paintings in one, isn't it? It's like you've got this sort of spider's web over the front of it. And then you've got the industrial scene, which is beautifully observed. And then ultimately, you've got this incredible snowy landscape early in the morning.
And finally, quite a lot going on in our last painting.
Yeah, you get your traditional landscape, and it does feel like you're in the Rocky Mountains, but then there's this whole other kind of universe in front of it. And it's almost like a diary to accompany the piece.
Yeah, it's like landscape meets mind mapping meets documentary.
Well, there we go. 8 artists, 8 different approaches. Outside this tent, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and the bubbles are waiting. Artists, we hope you're feeling lovely bubbly because your challenge is about to begin.
As always, you have 4 hours to complete your landscape, and your time starts now.
Or we get told off by the Eden Project.
Today, the artists are facing a sweeping panorama of the Eden Project, including its 2 giant greenhouses, the tropical and temperate biomes. With their geodesic design and reflective plastic surface, they provide a surreal centerpiece in this otherwise lush, verdant view.
I think it's fairly safe to say this is no ordinary landscape. One of the big challenges today is geometry. We've given them a very particular view. These are iconic, and I don't use the word lightly. Everybody's seen an image of this, and we want to see these biomes through the eyes of these artists. I think this is one of our best challenges yet.
So how do the artists plan on tackling today's particular 6-sided dilemma?
The problem's is probably going to be the hexagon shapes within the domes. There's quite a lot going on, and it's whether to overemphasise that or hold back on it.
The hexagons are really stunning, but there is a perspective as they bend over the sphere. So trying to capture that is a challenge.
I'm quite excited by that view. It's the hexagons I'm worried about, those bubbly hexagons. And I'm wondering how the light's going to change on it.
Lincoln Tabor is a professional artist from Sussex. His submission, a small-scale wintry scene of pollarded willow trees, took him just a couple of hours. But today he's planning something more ambitious.
So I can see, Lincoln, that we're thinking diptych today.
And possibly diptych or triptych. Might plonk that there. And even possibly, I've got another board just in case for a quadriptych.
Oh, my goodness. I don't think we've ever had one of those before.
No,
And why in sections? I mean, your submission was just a solid single piece.
because it's quite a long, sort of narrow vista. And I like working on this size canvas or board.
OK.
But I'm trying to still work out the composition. I'm sort of playing around at the moment.
OK, playing around. You know, playing around is fine for a little while, but then you really are going to have to make some decisions, get thinking.
I'm going to make a lino print today. So I've started by taking a few photos, popped them on the iPad, framed it up, sketch it out, then start transferring the image onto the lino.
Having discovered printmaking 5 years ago, amateur artist Doug Johnson fits his lino cuts around his day job in sales for an engineering company. His intricate submission of the island of Mont Saint-Michel is his biggest and most complicated piece to date.
So, Doug, of all the submissions on the wall this morning, yours was the one I thought Oh, he's going to enjoy this.
Yeah, loads of detail to get my teeth stuck into, I think. Gone for like a little portrait orientation. I've created an imaginary window to look through. It's time that's the
Time
pressure,
is your problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how long did your submission take?
60 hours,
Right.
something like that.
So you'd need 15 of these days to
I could-
complete your
yeah,
submission.
that would be
But
nice.
You've got one.
Yeah, and with the printing, I've got to like reverse it.
Okay.
So it's like another
Oh, that's making my head hurt.
another nightmare.
Our 8 artists aren't the only ones painting at the Eden Project today. A little further round the hill are today's group of indomitable and ever-resourceful wildcard artists.
I have tubes of paint, I have my brushes, and water, which I nearly forgot, which is no good with watercolours if you don't have any water with you.
I've got pork pie, Stockton got some clotted cream fudge and some cheese, vintage cheese. So if it all goes wrong, I can just sit here, enjoy the sun and get fat.
They're competing for a chance of a place in the semi-final. So as well as paints and packed lunches, they also have their support teams in tow.
I brought my boyfriend with me. Hopefully he'll hold the umbrella, that'll be quite helpful.
Is he keeping you relaxed?
He's getting me cups of coffee.
Do you welcome advice?
I absolutely welcome advice. I think I rarely take it.
As the wildcard's landscapes begin to take shape, back in the pods, one artist is taking a more descriptive approach to today's challenge.
My style of painting is about storytelling. I involve lettering and word within the painting. I think they're as important as the actual visuals to tell the story.
Sharok Nile is a filmmaker born in Iran who brings a cinematic eye to his contemporary artworks. He uses writing and annotation to surround his paintings with narrative, and his submission documents a trip through the Rocky Mountains in Colorado.
So, Sharok, welcome to the Eden Project. It's got a lot to give, isn't it?
It has, yeah, it's got a story behind it. I think I might be able to bring that story out.
Now, how do you work this narrative out? Is it drawing?
It's initially, I'm breaking down my thoughts in a series of panels. It's like writing storyboarding. And
Is that the filmmaker in you?
That's the filmmaker I come in, yeah. So each panel for me tells a story because I work digitally. I work with layers.
When you say you're working digitally, you're
in my head, basically.
Oh, in your head?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I look at like layers after layers after layers.
It sounds like kind of a really new approach. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this mind stuff comes out on there.
While Sharok's conceptual art evolves, for some of the artists, the priority is getting paint down on the canvas quickly.
I generally tend to be a 44-hour painting type of person. I tend to really love detail, and I've perhaps got to drop that a little today.
Professional artist Denise Cliffen is from Matlock in Derbyshire and also works as a private art tutor. Her submission, painted in acrylics, shows a multi-layered composition of industrial works in a snowy landscape seen through winter woodland.
So, Denise, you found a very particular slice through. How did you find that?
It just pleased my eye. And the terracotta roof in the centre there is beautiful. The way that I generally work is start at the furthest point and work forward. But I sometimes get a little bit hung up on the detail in the background. The foreground, it's the last part that I will do, and whether I can get the detail that I'd like to achieve once I get there.
You've almost got the spines of the pod structure that's a bit like the trees. I'm not giving you any ideas, but, you know.
Already an hour into their challenge, the artists have had to make key decisions and commit to their compositions.
I'm doing a triptych now. Slightly worried about time now. I was taking it a bit too easy early on.
I'm at the cutting stage now. I've gone for quite a detailed foreground. It's very unpredictable. You never really know what you're going to get.
I need to double check my angles and everything as I work down the page. If I don't check, the proportions will be out, and that would be disastrous.
At the Eden Project in Cornwall, 8 artists are 1 hour into their challenge to create a winning work of art. But for mixed media and collage artist Priya, painting is only the first step in her process. So you've got acrylic, you've covered the colours very quickly with very broad strokes. What's your sort of plan?
Get the composition down in paint and then collaging areas so that I have the balance between painted space and fabric. I mean, ideally, bubble wrap would be great.
Priya Sunil was born in Kerala in India and has lived and painted all over the world. She works in a mixture of paint and fabric, and her submission piece of Jodhpur in Rajasthan incorporates local block-printed material. When you put on the fabric and the other textures, will it change it completely?
It will change it quite a bit, yes. The choices that I make, it depends on the atmosphere of the place. I've just brought a wide range of stuff, so it depends on what I would feel.
What's your emotional response to the general ideology of this place, which is about the planet, really?
I think it's very much to do with what I do, because I'm very much into using recycled materials. I don't throw away pallets. They go into collages. I don't throw paper. My house is literally a bin.
As the sun begins to bounce off the reflective centrepiece of this landscape, it's creating an even more difficult scene for our artists.
It's actually quite dazzling. Haven't quite approached the domes yet. I think I'm building up confidence.
Alicia Enfield is a professional artist from High Wycombe, whose art looks for the ethereal and eerie in the landscape. For the last 10 years, Alicia has been fascinated with painting fires, and her submission piece is based on the bonfires of Walpurgisnacht, a historic festival in Germany.
I happened to read about an event where these bonfires are lit. It's all about witchcraft and...
witchy fires.
Yeah,
even
they're witchy
more
fires.
interesting. This, on the other hand, is sort of human engineering, looking really resplendent. Are you looking for that darker side?
I think so, and I think the way I found it is almost going the other direction, because there's something quite otherworldly about the Biomes, which I think does a similar thing to the fire. At least I'm hoping so.
So you're going to sort of tell a different version of this, as if some other life force has come and taken over?
Yeah, I think so.
Good for you for taking something really lovely and making it a little bit scary.
So, Ty, normally when we plonk our pods down, they can look incongruous. Here, they've got a lot of competition.
They're absolutely at home, you're right. It's interesting, this contrast between weird man-made in this sort of bowl of beautiful nature.
They have to include these domes, don't they?
Oh, yeah, they've got to. You don't need to slavishly draw all 8 of them, and I think they will have to edit out large parts of it.
There's a certain physical logic to them they'll have to grapple with.
You mean they're really complicated?
They're really complicated.
Reproduce. Each of the hexagons, we have a reflection of what's happening in the sky. And because each is slightly convex, it makes it incredibly difficult to paint. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But we are trying to test our competitors.
Wrestling with these bubble-wrapped greenhouses is a test for all the artists, but to some, it's a world away from their usual inspiration.
It's not my typical subject matter. I'm more used to doing streets and urban type scenes, but there's a nice combination of sort of the man-made structures and the natural environment.
David Youds is no stranger to painting under pressure, reaching the Landscape Artist of the Year semi-final in 2019. He paints landscapes of his suburban surroundings, such as his submission of an empty bus stop. But today, he's setting himself a double challenge.
David, 1 to 2, you've decided a diptych.
Yeah, it wasn't the original plan, but because we got such a view, decided to be a little bit more ambitious.
OK.
I work quite small, usually.
Yeah. So this is really putting
Yeah, it's really kind of pushing it for me.
But also, it's quite loose. Is there a way of painting those geodesic domes that works?
Well, I've not got to that stage yet.
OK.
But I am going to start making some of the shapes and things and marks, but I'm not going to over-egg it.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it evolves.
While most of the artists have already got an eye on the time, one of them is concerned with having too much of it.
I would normally spend an hour to 2 hours on a painting, so 4 hours is quite a long time.
Dominic Parchuk has been working as a professional artist for 10 years and is an experienced plein air painter. He specialises in pastoral landscapes, and his submission makes the sky the star of the composition.
Dominic, I'm a bit surprised. With your submission, you gave us 2/3 sky. Here you've gone completely the other way around. What made you go in that direction?
Well, I did play around with proportion and do I want more sky or more land? Do you know what? I wanted a bigger canvas. But I was keen to get these biomes in. It's a journey. It kind of...
Okay. So you feel your way through it. And a lot of it's instinct, presumably.
Yeah, and the light's changing as well, so you have to work quickly.
Your sky in your submission was so fantastic.
I want more sky, basically.
OK, well, I better let you
Who knows?
wrestle with that conundrum.
All right.
Meanwhile, high on the hill, the wildcard artists are working away. But the sunny day is making their view even more complicated.
They're quite difficult to paint because you've got all the highlights and then it goes in and the grey changes, the colour.
Well, we didn't say
So
landscape artist of the year was easy. We set these challenges on purpose.
The biomes are a tough one to paint. And so I haven't at all, because I'm working in watercolour and it's been so hot and I've had to work through it so quickly because it just dries so quickly.
As always, they're offering up a wide range of techniques and materials to try and catch the judge's eye.
What's this surface?
This is modelling paste, because I love impasto
Will it
texture.
be bumpy?
Very bumpy. And then I'm going to try and make it touch dry with my heat gun, and then I'll paint on top.
Good luck.
Look at your board. What is it?
It's a piece of timber from my future son-in-law's timber yard. He's a tree surgeon. I've never painted a landscape before. I've always done pen and ink drawing.
What? So you entered Landscape Artist of the Year wildcard?
Yes.
Thinking, I'll work it out on the day?
I'd give it a go, yeah.
Back in the pods, our selected artists are nearing the halfway point of the competition.
It's not 100% accurate, but I've kind of had to just go for more like the shapes and colours.
I'm not halfway, but unless I get my composition right, I wouldn't feel good about moving on.
The domes will probably be the last thing that I do. How I find success painting light involves leaving the boards blank until the very end, which can be a bit make or break.
But one of the artists has decided on a radical rework.
I'm not happy. I want to add a larger sky. It's always a gamble, wiping off in a painting, but you never know where it's going. And that's part of it, it's the unknown.
At Cornwall's Eden project, 8 artists are halfway through their individual interpretations of this peculiar landscape.
The process for third hour is basically introducing more layers. So the chair is representing myself, and that's the story of me and the dome for today.
Doing the collaging now, the fun bit. This beeswaxed fabric I picked up from the store here, so I could use something that's locally sourced.
I'm trying to cut down some of the detail, and I think it could come to a point in the foreground where I'm having to finish a third in half an hour.
So there'll be a blur of brushes.
There will be sparks flying off my brushes.
But while some of the artists are thinking about fine-tuning, one has only recently made some major changes.
Dominic, you actually took some of the painting off and started again. What prompted that?
I only had a quarter sky.
And from your submission, we can tell you like a big sky.
I do. And I thought, right, it needs a big sky. And I want the biomes to be nestled in the landscape to give this sense of place and scale.
The judges have kept note of the artist's progress all morning. So how do they think they're getting on? Halfway through the day, it's beginning to cloud over a little. but nonetheless it's bright. Is the prospect bright?
I must say, I'm surprised. All 8 artists have been able to tackle this quite weird landscape behind us and done it very well so far.
OK, let's start with Priya. It's hard to judge Priya because she's only just beginning to put on the pieces that she's brought with her.
I'm already starting to mourn the painting as she starts to cover it. And she's got this fantastically fluid, lyrical approach. I want to be persuaded that what she's going to do is make it better.
I think Priya's beginning today was fantastic, especially her colour choice. I think it's a very surprising palette. I miss the early painting.
What do we make of what Lincoln is doing?
Well, Lincoln has gone for the triptych. He's perfectly capturing that longitudinal landscape.
It's a very pleasing triptych, but I worry it's a painting that could get overworked quite quickly.
Alicia?
Alicia's given us the sort of the ghosts of the biomes at the heart of this jewel-like oil sketch, which is smoky in the background. The colours are beautiful.
To create something so believably menacing with brush marks that aren't precise but are sort of smudges is quite magical.
Now, Sharrock's is the most surreal.
I think what I like about it is the way that it feels like he's writing a play about this place, kind of creating a stage set. But also he's up against people who are really putting paint down beautifully. So I want to make sure that it's beautifully rendered.
David. Now, David we've seen before.
David's diptych is very competent. It's naturalistic in its colours. I suppose my worry is that he's up against artists that are doing really interesting things in terms of storytelling.
In his work, usually there's a narrative. There's a rejoicing in the mundanity of life.
Yeah, it's a problem because there's no bus stop here. It's like, yeah.
Now, Dominic has gone for sky.
Of course, Dominic, he started again. And he can do that because he's really fast. So the biomes are smaller now.
He was lucky because we've given him great clouds. We've delivered him these clouds. I expect them to be magnificent later.
Denise has targeted a little shed in the middle distance. What do you make of it?
It's just heaven, Denise's little shed. I mean, it's so beautifully painted.
I think Denise's work is very interesting for its sort of lack of focal distance. The precision of the background demands a precision in the foreground as well. If the background was looser, there would be leeway, but she's run out of leeway.
Now, it's hard to judge Doug because he hasn't started using his press yet.
I mean, I was worried about Doug because of the level of detail. I mean, he's got a style that leaves him totally exposed. We needed to see every geometric mark of those biomes. That said, his compositional choices are so sensitive.
It feels like we've got a bunch of really confident artists. They're all sticking very close to their style, and they're pretty much all doing really well.
But with less than half their time remaining, today's geometric challenge has left some of the artists at 6s and 7s.
Just get these bloody hexagons done. That's the name of the game. Making them look like bubbles to start with, and then I'll go in with the old fine brush. I haven't tried painting bubble wrap, but I imagine it's quite similar.
You've completely avoided the hexagons. Is that a deliberate decision?
For the time being.
Oh, they might go in?
They might do. Probably not quite as solid lines, probably also dreamlike.
But your submission painting was of a fire. Do you paint fire often?
100% at the
100,
moment.
literally 100%
yeah.
fire, apart from today.
Having carved his lino all morning, printmaker Doug is ready to see the results.
Doug, the ink has arrived. Is this the moment?
Yeah, I'm just going to ink it up, run a quick print, see if there's any major tweaks that need to happen.
This is a really exciting moment for us judges because we can't quite see what you can see.
It's just the scary bit.
Oh, wow.
So this is the first. So as you can see, it's not the coverage that I want. I want it to be a lot blacker, but that'll come in the next one.
Building it up. Great. Well, you're one step closer to your final work.
The lush valley view our artists are painting today is a man-made creation constructed within the last 2 decades. Originally, this site was a Victorian china clay pit, providing raw material for the porcelain industry. But by the 1990s, the pit was all but exhausted and served only as a scar on the Cornish landscape. Then, entrepreneur Tim Smith came up with an ambitious plan to transform it into a giant ecological attraction. However, his grand plan got off to a rocky and soggy start.
Literally an hour after we owned this hole in the ground, it started to rain, and it rained for 134 days without cease. And there was a point when the whole of the hillside piled into the bottom of the pit, 1.5 million tons of crap, and I thought we were doomed. And what happened next was, for 6 weeks, the most fabulous industrial choreography on a scale I've never seen before.
The construction of the giant conservatories was also the result of some particularly creative design.
The biomes are this particular shape in response to the youngest architect on the project, who realized that soap bubbles, when he did his washing up, will fit onto any surface. These domes are amazing because the film's not glass, it's a foil called ethyl tetrafluoroethylene, cling film with a bit of attitude to you and me. But it allows almost the entire range of light to penetrate inside.
All this technological innovation allowed a unique vision to bloom into life.
I wanted to find a place that was a model of dereliction in which you could build a lost civilization. And you've got to imagine there is some fictional god pouring all the plants that are useful to human beings through a funnel into it, so that when people come here, they can understand that we are totally dependent on the plant kingdom.
The result is a botanical paradise and dynamic educational resource with a little extra adrenaline thrown in.
Committing this ecological utopia to canvas are our wildcard artists. They've been battling the sunshine all day, but they're not burnt out yet.
My goodness, you found all the purples in the sky and the domes today.
Yes, they were there earlier on.
Well, it looks great. I mean, pastel, isn't that a fast medium?
I could have finished it about an hour and a half ago. I've been sitting down there wandering around.
Assessing the competition.
It's a mysterious slice of already mysterious landscape. You try to make it a bit different.
I'm not trying. If it comes out different, then I go with that.
That sounds like a really nice journey to... I think that's why painting at its best quite fun, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
really fun.
because
and it could
you-
go horribly
no,
wrong,
yes,
or it could
also.
be brilliant, you know.
The judges have been keeping an eye on the frontrunners, and it's time to select a winner.
Garden of Eden. I mean, it's been a gorgeous day with the wildcards.
The watercolourists had a lot of fun. And there's one guy in particular who was, I know he's very traditional, but he's very good watercolour.
His eye is so exact, isn't it?
No, he certainly knows what he's doing. What about the woman that's not used the whole canvas and she's masked off the postbox view? I quite like that sort of moody slide.
Purple pastels is interesting. It's kind of got that south of France feel. I feel like maybe it's too France and not enough Cornwall.
But a really nice, heavy touch to it as well.
I have to say, I feel quite excited about the idea of the watercolourist who's just got such confidence.
There's a sort of a beautiful flowing of mark making.
I can go with that.
Be a good winner.
OK, lovely.
Congratulations, you're our winner today.
Thanks
so
very much.
Well done. It's expressive, it's abstract, there's a looseness to it, and there's a joy of the paint. You get a great sense of light.
Thanks.
And well done.
I feel very surprised, actually. I'll probably celebrate with a few beers down the pub, I reckon. But it'll take me 4 hours to get home, so it might not be till midnight.
Max Panks from London will enter a pool of wildcard winners from all the heats, just one of whom will be chosen to compete in the semi-final.
Back at the pods, our 8 artists are into the final hour of the day's competition.
The painting's gone in a completely different direction than I expected, but it does seem to be translating into the otherworldly landscape that I arrived to.
I'm going to introduce some text and some information. I'm hoping I'm not running out of time.
I really don't want to touch the background now, and I know it will be tempting. I'm kind of itching to put more detail in there.
I'm going to sacrifice detail and try to get just a view of the entire space. I'll probably take another 3 days to complete this.
At Cornwall's Eden project, the artists are into the final minutes of their challenge. But some feel closer to the finish line than others.
I'm nowhere near finished. I'm still trying to be calm and collected, but it doesn't work, does it?
I made quite a big change to this foreground not very long ago, so I'm just deciding whether I'm happy with that.
Just getting down to the finer details, really. Try not to overwork it. Probably just gonna add little dots of colour.
It's the nightmare bit. Ink everywhere. It's where like panic sets in as well and all starts going wrong.
Artists, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you have 5 minutes left.
Oh my God! I'm really anxious, but I just need to get the hexagon lines in on my biomes and hopefully I'll be there.
Doing a bit of concrete, paths. There's a whole host of things I need to do.
Artists, your time is up.
Please put down your equipment and stand away from your paintings.
Well done.
Totally chaotic.
I'm completely cream-crackered. I didn't really have a look at everyone's work, so I need to go down there and see what everyone got up to.
While the artists seek a spot of shade for a well-earned break, for the judges it's time to assess the finished artworks.
It's been an extraordinary day. I suppose it's the extraordinary place we find ourselves.
And I think it's so exciting to see them all so radically different.
With Priya, I thought the underpainting was just fabulous. There was something about the atmosphere that she caught beautifully in that initial sort of brown and blue palette. I can't say I find that the collage has added to the painting or made it better.
But this is a really intelligent journey through this landscape. I think it's just that her painting is so good.
I quite like what Lincoln did. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that he needs to do a triptych, because to me it's a single piece, it's not 3 distinct pieces.
I think Lincoln's composition is phenomenal. It's so beautifully balanced, but there's a kind of weight missing to it. I saw his submission and thought there'd be more paint there because it's a different style of painting he's chosen today.
Alicia's painting is just so atmospheric and intoxicating, and I think she took the biome somewhere different. I mean, they're futuristic, they're alien, they almost look like a kind of animalistic shape.
Alicia's submission had a certain flavour to it, and I couldn't see how she was going to find the equivalent today, and she has.
I love it when someone breaks the fourth wall, and Chiroc's done that by drawing attention to the fact that, you know, he's in pod number 4, there's his chair. It's his landscape, which is in the middle, which, for me, is not as elegant as the one we saw in his submission.
And I think he should have been a bit less editorial. What we're getting here is very nicely edited. And so it becomes a kind of illustration rather than an actual experience of the day.
With David's, I know that he's much happier dealing with urban, gritty. So I was slightly confused as to why he then put pretty, organic nature as a second panel on the left-hand side. But I like the fragmentations of the sections. It's almost like looking at little bits of allotments.
Yeah.
I think he's a very good painter. I think his mark-making is beautiful. I just think, actually, the part with the biomes works less well than his allotments.
Dominic's a good plein air painter. You can feel the immediacy of the work, that huge expanse of sky which sort of towers over the biomes. It is really powerful.
It's when he starts to get into the middle ground and the domes, he kind of loses his nerve and goes in a bit too detailed. I think he should have kept it nice and loose.
Denise is a master at composition, isn't she? To find this little pathway through and to be confident enough to make this sort of dilapidated-looking shed the secret star of the painting.
In a weird way, she's also travelled through time. That sort of rotting shed could have been from the last century, and these biomes are from now. I think Doug's solution to his view is so elegant. The sense of looking through the window of a sacred building onto a very strange, mystical landscape. I mean, it's just beautifully done.
And I love his treatments of the biomes, you know, to basically just go full frontal geometric. I just really appreciate it.
But the judges can only pick 3 artworks for their shortlist. So which will they be?
We've all touched upon something, time travel.
Yeah.
And actually, the 3 I like have got time travel.
Me too. So do we have a top 3 then?
I've got
emerging.
Well, that is
I've got a top 2.
I think this is more painterly.
Okay.
Yeah,
so a time traveling top 3.
Artists, all 8 of you deserve commendation for the work you've done for us today. It's really been terrific. However, only 3 of you can be shortlisted for today's prize.
The first artist on the shortlist is Alicia Enfield.
The second artist is Denise Cliffen.
The third artist is Doug Johnson.
Our commiserations for all those who didn't make it, but you did wonderful work. It doesn't mean we don't admire you, so congratulations to you two. Well done.
Thank you. I'm feeling a little disappointed, of course, but I've learned a lot about my style, I think, and where I want to take that. So that's been a wonderful experience. So the whole day has been fantastic.
The judges now have the tricky task of picking today's winner. To help them decide, they also take into consideration the shortlisted artist's submission work. Well, judges, this is a glorious location, and I think the artists have risen to it.
They've just wrapped their arms around those domes and given us some great art.
So let's start with Alicia, who gave us the big fire. Now we have some marshmallows to toast on it.
What she has given us that's consistent across the two is a really good, solid bit of landscape painting and this strangeness right at the heart of it. She imbues the objects, like the fire, with personality.
There's some monumentality to her, the worlds she builds. There's something rather larger than life and all-consuming.
They feel really filmic to me. They could be film stills from a sort of apocalyptic movie. I just find the paintings really enigmatic.
I really enjoyed Denise's painting today, but I'm surprised that you picked it.
Well, she's certainly a traditional painter, but Denise also has a very distinct point of view that we saw in the submission again today. She's very interested in creating strange journeys through landscape.
It's how she constructs her paintings, where she makes it very difficult for the paintings to be understood. It takes time to sort of work your way through them.
The fact that she's gone narrow through the domes rather than doing the obvious wide expanse. She's got an interesting eye, and that's what's quirky about her.
Well, let's look at the lino cut. How do we judge it?
Doug, by the way he frames it, he makes each of these feel like it's a one-off. It's something precious, and I think it's because he's using tropes from history that feel precious.
And I love the way in which he deals with light. He's put black where you should see white, so he's inverted it, so it gives it a weightiness.
Well, as always, what a difficult decision you have, but we need a winner.
Alicia, Denise, Doug, as you know, there is only one place available to go forward to the semi-final, and the judges have made their choice.
The artist who will be going through to the semi-final is Alicia Enfield.
I'm feeling overwhelmed. Was not expecting that at all. Pretty glad that I took the risks that I did. It was a bit scary, but I guess it's good to do that sometimes.
Alicia's an artist who really manages to invest her paintings with this otherworldliness. We gave her the most otherworldly scene today with the biomes in the background, and she owned them. She's transformed them into her own living, dying shapes, yet still set within the most beautiful and atmospheric landscape.
I think it's quite exciting to have painted something other than fire. Scary, step out of your comfort zone, but I think I'll be trying it more often going forward.